AITA for copying wedding pictures from Dill's FB. Dill refuses to share wedding photos. She has stated that she will print me a professional photo but did not approve of the photo that I chose. I did copy some of the photos from her FB. I have friends and family that aren't on her FB and were not invited to the destination wedding. My husband officiated the wedding. I lost about 75 pounds for this wedding and for the first time in my life, would like a printed photo. Dill has told me under no circumstances am I allowed to print any of the copied photos because the quality will not reflect. I asked for the link to photos and she refused. I asked for a dump of photos of me and husband and son and she refused. This is my only living son. I lost a son at a young age. I have pleaded with her to no avail. Now she won't speak to me. AITA for wanting to share and have access to wedding photos of my son's wedding. Son is staying neutral. AITA for being disappointed in my husband for turning a dinner with colleagues into a full-on night of partying with his crush. So last night my husband mid-30s as am I, we've been together for 14 years had dinner with his work colleagues. He said it would probably be a dinner and maybe a couple drinks. He ended up coming home at 5:30 a.m., drunk as a sailor on leave, smelling like a distillery. I told him to sleep on the couch because our toddler was sleeping next to me in our bed. He did not agree. Safe to say I didn't really sleep after that. Today I find out he'd spent most of the night partying with a woman I know he has a crush on. He admitted this to me recently. Nothing happened and I believe him, but I think it's super disrespectful towards me and I am horribly disappointed in him. Background info: we have a 3-year together and have nobody to help. So it's only us. It's been really tough and I've had a hard time with my mental health. He says the other woman feels like a breath of fresh air and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill since nothing happened. He doesn't party all that often, maybe every 2 months, but maybe 2 a year. He goes on a boys trip for several days and that's all partying. So husband parties with his crush and leaves me alone with our kid. Am I the asshole for being disappointed and mad? AITA for embarrassing a middle-aged man for staring at my breasts. I 27F was out and about shopping with my husband. Recently we've dealt with a lot and honestly I just had no desire to be dressed up to go to the shops. I just wore joggers and a long shirt. I have big breasts and wasn't wearing a bra. I had a hoodie over me most of the time apart from the last shop, which by that point I was hot and flustered. I took said hoodie off and asked my husband if I still looked alright. He replied yes and well we just cracked on. We were walking around this shop and this middle-aged fella just full-on stared at me, mouth open a lot. I said rather loudly yes, I'm not wearing a bra. And yes, I have big tits, what you staring at? Which instantly had my husband in fits of giggles whilst the man sheepishly looked away and was bright red. Is this an ah move? I'm just sick of always being stared at and I just had to say something. AITA for embarrassing my neighbor because didn't understand me and I refused to switch to English. My F29 husband M31 and moved to a nice flat near the city centre. We're in England. It's a rather nice area. Our next door neighbor has her balcony next to ours. My husband is half Spanish half Polish. I am Polish. We speak both languages and often speak in a weird amalgamation of both, sometimes adding English to the mix. Anyway, both languages are spoken rather fast or they seem so and can sound a bit aggressive if you're not used to them. I've had people assume I was angry because of how the language sounded to them when I was having a completely pleasant conversation. My neighbor was no exception. She's heard us talking and must have assumed we were arguing. We weren't. She approached me and asked me, concerned, if I was okay. I was confused. And she explained that she'd heard our arguments. I explained that I was fine and we hadn't argued at all. I suggested that it might be because of how harsh both languages can sound. She didn't believe me and told me she was there if I needed help. I told my husband. We laughed and decided to speak a bit more quietly just in case. One day, we were chatting and joking around when 2 police officers knocked on our door. Someone called with concerns about my well-being. WTF? We explained our situation. They took me aside and I had to explain everything. It was humiliating, even more so for my poor husband. The next day, my neighbor approached me again and I repeated that we weren't arguing and she had to let it go. She told me that she wouldn't have to worry if we just switched to English. I told her we wouldn't be doing that and she'd have to take my word for it and stop bothering us. Last night, she posted a recording to our neighborhood's group. It was of me having a good time with my husband, joking around. She said she believed I was in danger and asked what to do and who to report it to because I was in denial. People were agreeing with her, calling me names and told her to keep recording because I was covering for him and complaining how difficult it was to help foreigners when they don't speak English. They called me all sorts of names for covering for my husband and I was just confused. It was until someone who spoke Spanish chimed in and said that we weren't arguing. Someone else who spoke Polish said the same thing and told her to mind her own business instead of recording people. She removed the recording. Today, she knocked on my door, shouting at me, telling me I humiliated her and I must have done it on purpose to toy with her when she was just concerned. I told her I explained it to her many times but she wouldn't listen. She kept shouting and calling me names and I just shut the door in her face. My neighbor is still furious with me and I am confused and I do feel bad because I understand where she was coming from and she had good intentions. Should I had switched to English to avoid the whole situation? It would have been an easy fix. Am I the asshole for confusing her? AITA for not accepting my son's 16M apology after a particularly nasty fight? My 40F ex-husband, Greg, and I split up 15 years ago, when our son, Troy, was barely a year old. His parents actively loathe me and my husband of 13 years, Michael. They have told Michael during custody exchanges that it would be best if you left, nobody likes you, and you'll never be Troy's real dad. They've made comments about my appearance, my job, my profession, etc. all in front of Troy. It came to a head in 2021 when Troy said that during every Sunday supper they have with Greg's parents, which is every other Sunday, his mom, Susan, would turn it into the I hate taco hour. With everyone at the table, Susan would start in on what a fat cow I am, how I'm a stupid bitch, a horrible mother, etc. Greg participated in this, laughed at her cruel jokes, and did nothing to stop it. I have made it a point to never speak ill of Greg or his family to Troy. Last night at dinner, Troy said that he's been having issues with a classmate. He didn't tell me because he hoped by ignoring it, it would go away. After much back and forth I told him to talk to someone at school, or I would. Troy exploded and screamed, "Why can't you be like Dad? He lets me fight my own battles. You don't love me. If you loved me you would let me fight." "I hate you," I responded, poorly, in hindsight. I told him, "Your dad not doing anything when his kid is being bullied is not what a good parent does. Ignoring this will not work. And don't you ever say I don't love you ever again. I went hungry so you could eat, whereas you sat there and made jokes calling your own mother a fat bitch. I know you hate me, it's obvious." I got up and left for a walk. I know I responded really badly, but I have had it with being his punching bag. Troy's a good kid, but he's got a mean streak to him, and I am his target. I collect vintage AITA figures, and anytime he sees a new one, he makes a snide remark. I don't have a ton, but if I see one at a thrift store I like, I'll pick it up. The owls are in my office, where nobody but me sees them. Troy does not want for anything, mind you. My favorite color is emerald green, and so my bedroom is decorated in lots of emerald green velvet. He made yet another snotty remark. If I forget something, he'll reply with, "And to think, you graduated the top of your class. Must have cheated or something." When I came home, Troy wanted to talk. He told me that he and his friends show affection by giving them shit, and that's all he knows. He apologized for flipping me shit and said he loves me. I told him, "I don't accept your apology. You are very cruel on purpose, and if you loved me, you wouldn't spend hours with Susan calling me a stupid, fat bitch, week after week. That isn't love, that is pure hatred. Now go get ready for bed." Troy walked off, and this morning hasn't said a word to me. I'm wondering if I took things too far, and maybe I owe him a massive apology. AITA for not getting my boyfriend a free pizza. For context, this situation happened about a year ago. It caused one of the biggest arguments we have had as a couple to date. As a couple we get on pretty well and agree on most things and communicate well, so we have disagreements, but full-blown arguments for us is rare. But it continues to be brought up by him and our friends. So I agreed I'd let Reddit decide. Me 25 at the time F and my boyfriend 25 at the time M had recently moved in together. He is in a band and every week on a Tuesday he has band practice. At the time, he would always go straight from work to practice and he would always order a takeaway between work and band for his tea that night and I would sort myself out. One time, I fancied a Domino's. For those who don't like it in the UK if it's different elsewhere, on Tuesdays Domino's has 2 for Tuesdays where it's buy one get one free pizzas. When I ordered they asked if I wanted a second. My mindset for this question was he always eats at band, and at the time we lived in an apartment block on the top floor with no lift so it was 4 windy steep floors to climb and carrying one pizza and my work bag up them was hard enough without the second one on top, risk of sliding and dropping. So I said no. When he got home, he asked what I'd had for tea and I told him. He asked where his was and I explained I assumed he'd eaten at work as normal so didn't get him one. He lost it. He stormed out the room and slammed the door shouting that I was selfish. I laughed to begin with because I thought he was playing, but after about 10 minutes I realized he was being deadly serious. His argument is it's a free pizza regardless, and I should have got him one for his lunch tomorrow if he wanted it and I hadn't thought about him at all. Now, I understood his points, and to me it was an oversight where I didn't think it through properly. But I think a full-blown argument which went on most of the night was overdramatic. I was being stupid but not enough. Also, when he ordered takeaways at work he never brought me anything home and I always sorted my own tea out on a Tuesday, so shouldn't that work both ways? Like I say, It continues to be brought up by our friends who sided with him in more of a jokey way now, but they're still adamant. I was in. Thanks everyone for your replies. I did reply to a comment with this, but more people are commenting, so thought I should add it here. For the people commenting about his reaction being a red flag and concerns from just reading this, I understand that. But just to reassure people, we've been together 2 years and this reaction was completely out of character, which is why I laughed and thought it was a joke. There have been no other reactions like this, and there are no worries with his anger. We have had disagreements about much bigger issues with no reactions like this. As below, he is clearly just very passionate about Domino's. Also to add, when I say it is still being brought up now, he's not bringing it up in an argumentative way. More of an ongoing joke. When Domino's is mentioned, he will make a joke of it. We both see the funny side of this now and both laugh at the jokes. It's not an ongoing issue, but we still disagree about who is wrong in this situation lightheartedly, which is why I said I'd bring it here for Reddit to decide. He's not still angry about pizza a year on. It's interesting to see how split the opinions are on this. Thanks, smiley face.